Allison Caswell, and today I'd like to talk to you about the medicinal purpose of cannabis. This is cannabis, and in our society, this leafy green substance creates a reaction, some of it being good, some of it being bad, and certainly everyone has an opinion. According to the National Institute of Health, the term medical marijuana refers to the using of the whole unprocessed marijuana plant or its basic extract to treat symptoms of illness and other conditions. Did you know that cannabis has been being used for 8,000 years, and for the last 5,000 years, it has been used as medicine? In 1619, every farmer was required to grow cannabis because it was very important to the United States. And no, it wasn't used for smoking or medicine, but it was because it was part of the culture. It was even used for cash for trade in some states. In the 1800s, cannabis was sold in pharmacies and used for medicinal purposes, and this went on around until 1913 when California was actually the first state to ban it. But what's ironic is California was actually the first state to legalize medical cannabis in 1996. I'm going to show you two pictures, and I want you to raise your hand for the one that reminds you of cannabis usage. The first one here, the first one here is Cheech and Chong, and the second one is a man taking a pill. Most of you probably picked Cheech and Chong, but did you know that they are actually the same thing? Cheech and Chong are prime examples of why cannabis was outlawed. Due to racism, people feared in the Great Depression that the Mexicans were taking jobs and that cannabis would kill you. And actually, in 1936, a movie called Reefer Madness was created to emphasize how bad cannabis was. And cannabis would cause divorce, violence, murder, and suicide according to that movie. In 1970, the Controlled Substance Act created that prohibited the sale of all cannabis, including medical. Outlawing cannabis didn't interfere the usage of it. In 2016, more people were arrested for possession of cannabis than the crimes the FBI considered violent. Cannabis is considered a Schedule I drug, which also includes LSD, believe it or not, heroin, and cocaine. In 2014, there were over 10,000 overdoses from heroin. That is literally enough people to fill the Southern New Hampshire University Arena for a Monarchs game. There were over 5,000 overdoses from cocaine, which is almost enough to fill the Fisher Cat Stadium, which is down the street from the SNHU Arena. 6 out of every 10 overdoses involved opiates, which are considered safer than cannabis. Because why? Your doctor can prescribe them. Anyone want to guess how many overdoses there were from cannabis? I'll give you a hint. If I open my hand right now and put people in there, guess how many is going to fit? 0. That's right. There were 0 overdoses of cannabis. In fact, there has never been a recorded overdose death from cannabis, according to the DEA. That was a brief history of why cannabis. So let's talk about why we need to have medical marijuana in the United States. As I previously stated, medical cannabis has been used for 1,000 years to treat anxiety, depression, weight gain, pain, and a slew of other ailments. In my life, I've had an experience with this that hits close to home. My 88-year-old grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, and we tried every treatment possible, many drugs to try to help her with the pain, the sickness, and it was more pills and no relief. So one day I went to her home and I noticed that she was actually happy. And I didn't understand how this was possible because she had been so sickly. And my grandmother's boyfriend, and yeah, ironically, she's 88 with a boyfriend, but he had given her some candies which had cannabis in them. And I just remember her being so happy, and not being so sick. And she was just the person that I remembered that loved to garden and things. And yes, she wasn't able to do all the things that she had done before, but she was the person that I remembered. And I'm grateful that after all the surgeries and medications that that's how I can remember her, as being happy, not sick and sad, but with a smile on her face. And it's a shame that something that helped a woman that meant so great in my life cannot be used by those who truly need it due to regulations. There are all types of ways that you can actually use cannabis medically. There's cannabis gummies, which would look kind of something like this, or they could be like shaped like a gummy bear. There's oils that would come in a dropper like this. Um, there's edibles, which would be cookies or brownies or something like that. And just so we know, these are not cannabis edibles in any way, because I'm not allowed to show them due to regulations. So these are just normal, these are just prime examples of what you can use the oils and things like that to do to make actual edibles, oils, things like that. You can also use the leafy green substance like I showed you before. You would use that for smoking. Um, and then there's also a slew of other things other ways that you can use that as well. And honestly, most of them you would not even know was cannabis whatsoever. Because research has and technology advances have made it possible to take a cannabis plant and splice it into different compounds. And these compounds are called cannabinoids. The two most researched currently are CBD, which actually, this is CBD here. And you can actually own CBD. It is legal. And THC, which is going to be what you're going to find in in the plant. Um, Sometimes in edibles, some people do use that in replace of CBD in the edibles or candies. The FDA has approved the use of THC in a medication called Marinol, which is why I said that you can find these actually in pills. That was where the gentleman trying to take a pill was being used with Cheech and Chong. Marinol is used to treat anorexia in people with AIDS. It's also used for nausea and vomiting caused by chemotherapy. CBD oil, like I said, excuse me, is used in gummies, brownies, and even treats for dogs. Again, this is what CBD oil is. Um, it is just like a little tincture, and it's a liquid. And they actually use it in treats for dogs to help dogs that are hyper, things like that, sickly. And research has shown that medical cannabis works just as well as prescriptions medications without the side effects. Some states have began to realize that the benefits outweigh the risk, and luckily my grandmother lived in one of those states. Unfortunately, the federal government still sees cannabis as a highly dangerous drug and is outlawed with severe penalties. The one flaw with cannabis is it can become addicting. It activates the pleasure center of your brain. I acknowledge this can become dangerous, and people using medical cannabis should have certain protocols to follow. But alcohol, cigarettes, chocolate, caffeine all do the same thing. And honestly, if I had to choose of taking an opiate pill every single day of my life or using some type of cannabis, I would always pick cannabis. How do you say cannabis should be illegal when it doesn't cause deaths and has significant benefits over the current remedies out there? I literally, if I had a bad day at work and had anxiety, could sit here and drink a glass of wine and that be okay. But to some, if I was to eat an edible that was made from THC, I would be jailed. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.